We understand entirely why you've taken the actions you have taken around Russia, and many other European businesses have done similar things. But we see the financial impact of your Russia decisions here, more than $700 million lost from Russia in the first quarter. Can you give us a sense of just how challenging it has been for the business to take these actions on Russia?
Well, for Maersk, our Russian business is somewhere around 2% of our turnover. So, of course, it's a relatively minimal impact. We are writing down all the assets that we have in Russia to zero, basically, in the first quarter. We own a stake in a company that runs ports. We own some warehouses and a few other things in Russia, and we have decided to write it all down during the quarter. Hopefully, we will regain some of that as we divest the assets in the coming quarters.
Yes. Yeah, you said back in March, I think, Soren, that you wanted to sell the stakes that you have in Russian ports. I wonder if you've said there is a hope maybe that you get some value for them. No expectation of that then at the moment?
Well, we are in negotiations with several parties, so we'll see how that lands. Of course, it's a complicated situation, and there's also sanctions that, in terms of money transfers and so on, that we have to abide by. So it will take a little while, I suspect, but there's active talks.
Can you update me more broadly then? Let's broaden out the conversation, Soren. Update me on the state of the container market at this point and any sense of normalisation. When we last spoke in February, you were thinking about perhaps normalisation in the second half of the year, but acknowledging things were very uncertain coming out of a global pandemic. Things are still uncertain, of course. Do you still expect to see normalisation of the container market in the second half?
Well, we have based our guidance for the full year still on that assumption. We also have to say that the first quarter hasn't done much to help congestion. We still have somewhere around 10 or 12% of global container ship capacity, which is tied up in waiting outside ports around the world. So that capacity is not, if you will, available to the market. It will become available at some point, and we certainly see improvements on the U.S. West Coast, which was a huge issue a few months back. The problem have been getting labor to get back, come back. To get enough trucking capacity to get people to be work in the warehouses, and that remains an issue many places. And now, of course, we start to see impacts in China as well from the lockdowns we see in Shanghai.
Do you think then that freight rates will remain elevated into the second half of the year, Soren, and maybe even beyond?
Well, in the case of Maersk, I mean, we have changed our book of business quite significantly over the last couple of years and have a much larger part of our business on long-term contracts. So we are a lot less, if you will, dependent on what happens to short-term freight rates. It stands to reason that as more capacity gets freed up from waiting and so on, that this will also impact the spot freight rates in a downwards direction. Actually, freight rates have come off slightly off its peak about a quarter ago, but they are still, of course, at, if you will, very elevated record high levels.
Yes, and speaking of those spot rates and maybe what impact you're seeing from China on your business, Soren, can you tell me what is the biggest problem that you're seeing in China at this point, given we cover day in, day out the ongoing fight against COVID-19 there?
Yeah, so the Chinese strategy, of course, is to try to eliminate every single instance of COVID by strong lockdown measures. And we are seeing the impact on the business in the sense that we are lacking labor in warehouses, we are lacking trucking capacity. The ports right now are open. So for business, but of course it only really works if the land side is also, the trucking and the longshoremen and so on are there, and we are seeing a negative impact on our volumes out of China right now from COVID-19 lockdowns. Not as much as you may expect, but we're certainly seeing an impact.
Last time we spoke, Soren, and we were talking about disruptions in markets or areas where the container market was looking congested. You cited LA and Long Beach. You say you've seen a bit of an improvement there. Where in the world is your current concern when it comes to the container market?
Well, Los Angeles is still a concern, but it's significantly improved. We have seen more congestion appearing on the U.S. East Coast as it has eased a bit on the West Coast. We believe that may be because we see more and more of our customers using the East Coast as a gateway into the U.S. in expectation of, or maybe as a mitigation against a potential labor disruption that we can see we can have on the U.S. West Coast this year as a new negotiation on the collective bargaining agreements kicks off here in May. We're also seeing things go relatively slow in Europe, and then of course we already discussed China.
We've talked in the past also, Soren, about your M&A expectations, about the plans to become a fully integrated logistics provider, and of course about the deal to buy Pilot Freight Services. Where does that goal stand now? Are you looking for further deals on that front?
Well, I mean, we're growing really fast on logistics. 41% in the first quarter revenue growth over last year's first quarter. More than 30% of that being organic, and this was the 5th quarter in a row where we grew more than 30% organically in logistics. We have added a number of acquisitions. We still have 2 that we closed Pilot earlier this week. We still have LF Logistics in Asia and Senator in Germany to close transactions that were announced about a quarter ago. And I think we right now probably will be busy integrating the 3 acquisitions that we have ongoing, and then we will continue probably to when that is done to acquire more capabilities in the logistics space so that we can continue to support the very rapid growth we have with our customers in logistics.